Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, we have an amazing show tonight. I sound like Ed Sullivan from years ago. It's probably no one out there as old as me that remembers Ed Sullivan. Anyway, at the Swift Voice Out, we have a fantastic show. And I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever holiday you celebrate, because I'm sure I'm not going to hit every single holiday, but spend time with your friends, your family, enjoy this season. And someone asked me to make this announcement. If you're out there imbibing, drinking alcoholic beverages, please don't drive. If you drink, don't drive. There's so many options these days. You take an Uber, bring a couple extra bucks with you. You Venmo the you don't even have to Venmo them. It's all set up in your phone. You can even give them a tip, but it's better to pay the Uber driver 40 or 50 bucks than pay the attorney 5,000 bucks as a down payment, right? And plus it's against the law. So enjoy the holidays, but if you drink, don't drive. So folks, we're going to talk tonight about Rex Heuermann and his time, what he's doing in the Suffolk County Jail. We're hearing so many different rumblings, so many new things, because this investigation is for sure not over. So hang on to your seats, get ready. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
We're back, so I'm going to get right into it, guys. I'm going to bring on my two co-hosts, and we have an unbelievable guest. He's been on once before. I'm going to surprise you as I bring him in. But first, I'm going to bring in my first co-host, and he's from Brooklyn, straight out of Brooklyn. He's been running all across Brooklyn, picking up cannolis from all different locations and delivering them like in a Santa Claus outfit to people less fortunate than him. And he's a retired NYPD detective. Welcome, Phil Grimoli, to the show. Phil, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, Billy. How about you?
What about it? Good to see you. And we also have retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College. He picked up a law degree along the way, and I always say the man of reason, Professor Michael Geary.
Hey, Billy. Good evening. Good to see you and Phil. Good evening, everybody.
Great to see you. And, you know, we have Mike, and I always say you're the man of reason, but ever since I met Sheriff Errol Toulon, he's got this real calm manner. He's a highly educated guy, has more years in corrections than most lifers have done in prison. And he's an unbelievable guy. Welcome to the show, Sheriff Errol Toulon.
Thank you. Great being on with you guys.
Thank you.
You know, Sheriff, I mean that. I mean, when I had you on the show the last time, you're so calm. Is that the way you are at work?
Yes, I've been like this for 41 years in law enforcement.
That's unbelievable. Just the fact that you've done 41 years is enough to be just off the charts. So let's get right into it, okay? One of the things we wanted to talk about, and when I heard about it, and this isn't really brand new news, but when you follow the news and you follow the news cycle, they were speaking about, specifically Law and Crime was speaking about that at least 10 or 12 former escorts have reported, and they quoted you as saying this, have had interactions with Rex Heuermann. Could you speak upon that, Sheriff?
Sure. As of right now, our Sheriff's Anti-Trafficking Unit has reported, we've interviewed about 165 women between the Suffolk County Jail and also the Nassau County Jail. And we have 15 reports that we have of women who have said that they know something about Mr. Heuermann or they've had some sort of interaction with him. So those reports have been given to the Gilgo Beach Task Force for review to see the validity of their claims. And, you know, it's something that we do realize that some women may want their 15 minutes of fame and some may have actually had some sort of encounter with him. And so the task force will cull through all of that information to see what's valid and what may bring to light with anything regarding Rex Heuermann.
Sheriff, this is specifically what I was referring to right here.
I want to start off with potential witness testimony. And when I talk about these updates,
Just when you're counting on Santa to bring it home. Well, he's talking about it specifically. What we just referenced is that all of these former. Let me just let me remove this.
sex workers
Oh, there we go.
claim to have had interactions with Rex Heuermann. Now, the sheriff said they're still working to verify these claims, but
Sheriff, this isn't. It's not going too well here. Hang on.
in jail as Heuermann. And we've told everybody before on Sidebar that Heuermann was reportedly this.
All right, I'm going to remove that. So what they're talking about basically is that these women that are in the same jail have made allegations that have had contact with Rex Heuermann. Have you been able to vet that information, to check it out?
So the Gilgo Beach Task Force is the group that will be vetting everything out that we accumulate, any data or any information. What we're doing currently is actually interviewing not only, as I said, the women in our jail. We started in Nassau County, and then we will be moving to New York City to interview any sex workers that may be housed on Rikers Island.
Wow. Phil, you got a question to ask the sheriff?
Well, I think he laid it out pretty good. A lot of the things that came forward in this case post arrest, people came out of the woodwork. We know the stuff that came with the different attorneys, Shannon Gilbert's attorney. And I think he kind of laid it out pretty good when he said that they're going to interview these people and they're going to try and determine who's looking for their 15 minutes of fame and trying to throw their hat into the ring of this serial killer major case, or who actually can be corroborated that, yes, they do have information that they did have contact with Rex Heuermann. That's what we try to stress when we talk about any of these investigations. People could come forward with information, whether it be credible or not, has to be vetted. So I think he kind of laid it out really good. And I think that the task force is probably in high gear trying to figure out if any of these women that came forward, or I think he talked about 15, 16 different people, whether or not they actually did have contact with Rex. And I'm sure they're going to interview them extensively to find out what transpired in that contact.
Mike, you got a question for Sheriff Toulon?
Sheriff, with some of the women who are actually presently in custody in, say, Suffolk County in your jail or in Nassau County, is there any thought to perhaps for their cooperation that charges may be reduced or may be dropped in exchange for some testimony?
That would be up to the district attorney, whether Nassau County or Suffolk County, to make that sort of deal with an individual that may have any information. But what's interesting is that now the sex workers that are in our custody are informing us of women who may have had interaction with him, who may have never been arrested. And so with that, now we're embarking on women who are not in our custody or have never been in our custody that we're seeking to find and work to see if they have any information also.
Sheriff, I got a real good question, I think. I'm gonna ask you, of these 10 or 12 women that came forward to gave you information, has the information been vetted? And part B to that, will it help in the prosecution of Rex Heuermann?
So the information is still currently being vetted by the Gilgo Beach Task Force, but currently I think it's anything that we may learn about Rex Heuermann, whether it's a phone call, an email, or a text exchange, will help us in the investigation and really put you three know much better than me the pieces of the puzzle together to see if Rex Heuermann actually had encountered with some of these other women. It's very interesting when we talk to these women, we started to learn more about just the sex trafficking trade and how these women exchange information regarding a particular John that may be very aggressive. and how they communicate with each other on various social media platforms. Or if a John is tips very well, how they will let another sex worker know in case that person does reach out to them. And so there is a whole network or community of these, these women that are sex workers, and they're communicating with each other.
But, Sheriff, I would imagine also that a lot of the women in the escort trade and the sex trade have drug and alcohol problems. So I would imagine that verifying and vetting the information that they're putting forth is difficult. And especially if it goes back, 10, 12, 13 years. I mean, all of us now, of course, we're in the cell phone generation, but we weren't always, right? What was the year, I think, that cell phones came out where if you didn't have one, someone looked at you like you were strange, right? I think I was one of the last people. It might have been like 1997, 98, right around there.
Early 90s is when they started to come
Yeah,
about.
but not everyone had them right away.
Right away. If you had one, people looked at you funny if you had one in those days.
Yes. And that we all look at digital evidence now as some of the strongest evidence. So can we go back and dig out some of this digital evidence to vet the information that these escorts are giving us?
I think we lost him. Billy, can I just make a quick comment? I think that, interviewing these sex workers is probably one of the tasks that the task force has. And it could possibly provide, his behavior with these women. Serial killers are into control. It's not really about the sex so much. It's more about the control of the person. I watched a documentary the other night about a different serial killer, and he actually did an interview. He gave a lot of information why he did it, and it was really more about control. Jeffrey Dahmer was the one that I watched, and it was about control. So I think that if they interview these sex workers and they can establish that perhaps they were involved with Rex Heuermann, and they get into detail about what transpired while he was with them, if there was any type of a control factor, I think that might give a profile of what they're looking for in a serial killer, and perhaps the district attorney's office can put that forward in court and provide like a groundwork for, look, this is what he did in the past. These women weren't, or women weren't killed, but perhaps he exhibited some behavior that would be consistent with a serial killer.
We're losing Sheriff Toulon again.
He, at one point he said he couldn't hear you, Bill. So I know there's.
Okay.
It would be kind of interesting to see if any of these ladies at the interview can shed some light on what his wife's role might be if their meetings were at the home. Because if they could show a pattern of behavior with Rex and his wife working together, then it kind of puts a little bit of different spin on Asa Alzrup's, complete innocence. So that would be kind of interesting too.
Sheriff Toulon, what Professor Mike was talking about was, I'm sure you watched the press conference with Attorney John Ray, and in fact, Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison was standing right next to him, and we did a couple of shows on it. I couldn't help but read Rodney Harrison's body language, and his body language it wasn't saying positive things. There was some dismay, I think, in his body language, and that's a big thing because John Ray has brought out several witnesses, and everyone reported that like it was gospel, like this was the truth, because they had signed affidavits, which just means what they're telling they believe to be true. Doesn't mean it is the truth. Your thoughts? Oh, lost him.
It seems like he has a bad connection.
He must have. But so, when I wanted to get Sheriff Toulon's opinion on that, because he's coming back on. Hopefully I get him in here and with a stronger signal. We're losing you.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know if I need to restart everything, but that was a very interesting press conference, and I think that some of us wondered what was Mr. Ray's ulterior motive behind holding that press conference, when actually it should be the law enforcement community really getting out to the public and asking for their information He is not part of this investigation, never has been, and probably never will be. We will take any information he can provide, but it was something that some of us were all scratching our heads about.
Well, it seems specifically District Attorney Ray Tierney was a little perplexed. He put out a
Statement.
a statement in regards to his displeasure that former Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison was there. But right away, one of the things when you watch the media and even what we do in regards to doing a podcast, many people bought it hook, line, and sinker. And I questioned immediately, right from the get-go, how do we know that any of this is true, even a bit of it, when it's unverified? And because someone signs an affidavit, it just means they believe it to be true. Doesn't mean it in fact is true. Professor Mike.
Yeah, Billy, what you have is an affiant signing a statement saying, to the best of my knowledge and recollection, what I'm putting down on paper here is the truth. And I recall in 1996 or 1997, because remember, some of these allegations date back many years, 2007, 2008. And, what we remember, we could, back 10 years ago or 5 years ago, we may be off by months. We may think remember the spring as the fall or the summer as the spring, and months, difference in months, April to September, that sort of thing. It's not chiseled in stone. It has to be vetted. And for some of the people in the audience that don't know what that means Phil goes out there, you go out there, and you're sitting there and you're asking them 100 different questions, 100 different ways to try to see if their story doesn't change. How accurate is it? What are some of the indications of reliability? Did they remember that a particular date, April 2007, because it was their birthday? I think at one point they were talking about February of maybe 2014 or whatever it was, and it was happened to be around Valentine's Day. Certain milestones that people remember, something that really sticks in their mind. So it has to be vetted, and I hope people realize that the information, in order to be vetted, has to be gone over. Is there any objective indications, like a cell phone record, an email, a release from detention, an arrest date, all of those things that help solidify the reliability of that information. Because until we can test it, we don't know if it's reliable or not. And if it's not reliable, then it's not going to make it into a court of law, no matter how well-intentioned the speaker is or the affiant is.
Well, this is Nikki Brass, who was one of the first to come out a few months ago.
Yes.
To be the go-go killer.
I don't believe it to be him, for one.
You're convinced this is him.
I am convinced. I am 1,000% sure.
So this guy reaches out to you. Did he say immediately he wanted you to come to his house?
Yes. But the issue was he lives in Nassau County and he was in Massapequa. And I'm not familiar with the area and I'm very locationally challenged. Like, I need a GPS to go home and I could live there for 5 years. Like, I'm bad. So I didn't have friends nearby in case anything happened. So I asked him if he would meet me in Port Jeff.
This is one of the escorts that was one of the ones making allegations very early on, and you could see that she's not sure, Sheriff, of any specific dates, times, locations, because even in her own words, she says she's locationally challenged.
Yes, and also I guess I'm not sure if there were other mitigating issues that she was experiencing in her personal life.
Oh, we lost him again.
We keep losing the sheriff, guys.
Billy, can I piggyback what Mike said a little earlier? I just want to piggyback. He mentioned about
there was something
Johnny
that
Ray
she said.
Yeah, wait, hang on. Let me get back.
Go ahead. We have him or no?
We got you, Sheriff.
Oh boy, I'm still having trouble.
Yeah, it's you coming in and out.
Wow.
Did you guys pay the Wi-Fi bill out there in Suffolk County?
Yeah, it's tough. We have high taxes here, but I do think that Ms. Brass did have some validity to some of the information that she had, because she came out very early on. You know, some of the other sex workers that we have interviewed have really pretty much piggybacked off of what the media has said or information that's known to everyone. So, you know, some of the things that she claimed in the area that she was, especially going out with him in Port Jeff, I believe it was.
Yes.
So, you know, I know that her information was being looked at very carefully also.
You know, I wanted to ask also the information that many of them gave, and specifically Attorney John Ray. I don't want to call him Johnny Ray because it sounds disrespectful, but Attorney John Ray, the specific information he came with, which, by the way, as I said earlier, the media bought it hook, line, and sinker. It was being reported as the gospel truth, the new information, the new smoking gun. We haven't heard anything about it since, which leads me to believe that it's unvetted information. It's information they were been unable to verify. Your thoughts, Sheriff?
Yes, not only was it unvetted, it was probably spoken about in the wrong form. You know, if it was presented to the district attorney's office or at least to the Gilgo Beach Task Force, at least they could have vetted that information. I don't know if he wanted credit, but, you know, we still have not really moving forward with any of the information that he has provided.
Well, he had, according to the other attorney, the wife's attorney, Robert Macedonio, and I always say him and his associate, they wear sneakers because they chase a lot of ambulances, you know, and it's unbelievable. Like, he came across out against Attorney John Ray, and I know they know each other because the other associate used to work with John Ray, Ves Matev. He was an associate of John Ray's like 5-10 years ago. So it's a very small world, Suffolk County. But I remember he was speaking out against him on the Dan Abrams show. This was Robert Macedonio, and he was claiming that he was making all this stuff up because he wants to recoup tens of thousands of dollars that he spent on this investigation that he's never been able to recoup because there's no one. The family of Shannon Gilbert had no money. So he was just sort of taking that case pro bono and wasn't getting paid. Phil.
Yeah, what I was going to say, I was going to piggyback what Mike said earlier. This is probably very good that they're going to interview these workers. And if they do find a sex worker that did have interaction with Rex Heuermann and did go to his house, then you could clearly maybe put to rest that his wife is involved or that they were bisexual or any of the antics that Johnny Ray came out with. So I think this is a good way of vetting some of the things that he said. If we find other people and other sex workers and they are credible, and they say, no, when I went there, the house was empty. He was alone. There was no one there, blah, blah, blah. I think it kind of put to rest some of the wild conspiracies that he came out with.
Well, you know, some of the stories that Attorney John Ray came up with, I mean, first of all, one of them was from 17 years ago, because they claimed the woman, Sheriff Talon, was Karen Vergata, the woman that came to the house with the narcotics detective from New York City and the African-American female who was driving. And the third person in the car, according to John Ray, was Karen Vergata.
Yeah, you know, John really has come up with some interesting information that, as I said earlier, the task force is really going to have to vet. I haven't heard anything regarding the validity or lack thereof of anything that he may have presented. You know, we obviously think he did it in the wrong forum.
The wrong forum,
but,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
he needed to press for himself.
Yeah, how else could the information be vetted if it's not presented to the Gilgo Task Force and the detectives who are working on this case that are able to verify times, places, locations, digital evidence, all of those things, the credibility of the witness itself? That there's a lot to that also.
Billy, he could have been a little bit more credible had he said, well, there was another person present and it could have been Karen Vergata. He said it with conviction, like he knew it for sure. He doesn't know it for sure. This is what he wants the pieces of the puzzle to fit into this case, is that he wants to put those things forward. again, for his benefit. I don't think that a lot of what he said, he was so all over the map with that press conference, and a lot of what he said didn't seem logical to me. I mean, Rex Heuermann in a bar, people firing shots, all these different things. I mean, that story was just completely not consistent with what a serial killer like Rex Heuermann would have done.
But Phil, we were one of the few podcasts that questioned it. Everyone else ate it like hook, line, and sinker, like they were a Long Island bluefish. You know, they chopped right down on it, and we were like, wait a minute.
It's salacious. That's why, Billy. It's salacious. It's people want to play into it. You know, there's a little bit of a component with YouTube and stuff where it's almost like a soap opera type atmosphere. So again, when you have something salacious, something wild, something out of the ordinary, people buy into it. But you know, we try to stay with facts, and we know from studying serial killers in the past, many serial killers, they have a certain pattern, and he had a pattern. Rex Heuermann definitely had a pattern, and I don't think the pattern was that he was going to go to a bar, get drunk, fire shots, and do all the different things that they were talking about. Those things may have really happened, and I believe that those people that signed those affidavits, it may have really happened to them. Whether or not it's involving Rex Heuermann is another story, and I think that's the obligation of the task force to figure out, to vet it. And I think that this is a great thing that they're finding these other sex workers. If they find one or two that really did have contact with Rex Heuermann, and they can talk about their interaction with him, I think that would give, it would be more consistent to what he did with the other workers. And I think that would kind of, you know, maybe put those things, those wild conspiracy theories to rest.
You know, Sheriff, the sex industry also is a very small industry, obviously, and the workers, perhaps the managers, I'll be kind, I won't use the word PIMP, right? They all know each other. And with that said, when something bad happens to one of them, it seems like they will all know about it. So I think one of the best things that you do is, I think you're one of probably the most proactive sheriffs, correction official in the country, and that you're out in the community shaking the tree, as we used to say in the NYPD, and see what falls out of that tree. Would you comment upon that?
You know, I think we have an advantage because these women are in our custody, and because they do know each other and they do communicate with each other on various social media platforms, that you know, we do have that advantage. But more importantly, it's giving it to some of the experts. It's like the police department or the FBI, the New York State Police, or even the district attorney's office. But we do have this little niche. We were the first ones in the country to create a human trafficking unit inside of a jail or prison in the United States. And we started this in 2018, really with no information about Gilgo. We really, from what we learned about from the media, of the law enforcement officers. So now we're able, once we're put on a task force, to have actually cultivate some pertinent questions that can assist the task force in moving this investigation along. And, you know, I do feel within the upcoming months, we're going to see a fourth arrest of that's for Rex Heuermann.
You mean a fourth charge? Yeah, fourth charge for Brainerd.
Fourth charge for Maureen
Brainerd Barnes, right? Right.
Correct.
Absolutely. And, you know, everyone's waiting on that. In fact, the media waiting very impatiently, as if he's going somewhere if they don't do this really quickly. You know, it's unbelievable. And, you know, in that that whole kaleidoscope of the media and instant news and reporting all of this stuff, it's great to get it from you, right from the horse's mouth, as they would say, the information. And what, you know, are you getting new information all the time in regards to Rex Heuermann, or is it more or less slowed down since the deluge in the beginning?
I think he's frozen, Bill.
He froze up. I'm going to have to.
Geez, and I had a good question for him too.
I'm going to bring him back.
I'm sorry,
There you go.
Still, can you hear me?
We got him.
Yeah,
now.
you froze for a second, Sheriff. Let me remove you again.
Perhaps
You're
he's
back.
got to go
You're
out
back.
and come back in.
Yeah, you keep.
I
You're
tried
free
that
there.
already. If you want, I could do it again.
No, I was hearing you just now. So
Yeah,
go ahead, talk.
Sheriff, can you hear us? Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us Oh no, he's frozen.
No, he's frozen up. Let me remove him and I'll put him back in. Folks, sorry, we're getting the Sheriff Toulon may have a bad Wi-Fi signal. I'm going to bring him back in, and it's a shame because he's an unbelievable
Oh
guest.
man, I had a couple of good questions too.
He'll be back.
All
Here we
right,
go.
good.
So yeah, I wanted to let me also while we're waiting for the sheriff to come back on. This is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. And if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership. We count 5 different levels. And we appreciate all our fans, our subs, and our friends that we've met over the years on the Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories podcast. Let me bring everyone back on. Sheriff, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm really sorry. I don't know
That's
what.
okay. It's got to
good
be the
now.
Wi-Fi signal. But Phil, what was the question you had for Sheriff?
Well, I was
Toulon?
going to ask him, get a little bit off of the topic of the sex workers that are being interviewed. What is a daily day in the life of Rex Heuermann in
I
jail?
can't
Does he
hear
have
Phil.
access to? Does he have? Can you hear me? I don't think he heard me. Sheriff, can you hear me?
Yeah, he keeps.
Jeez.
Hang on. Sheriff, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you, Bill, but I can't hear Mike or Phil.
Oh my God. What Phil was asking, Sheriff, was that what is a day in the life of Rex Heuermann like right now?
Does he have
Let me-
access to computers, Billy?
Sure.
Things like that?
So, he participates in all services. He's sleeping in the cell. He's by himself in a particular housing area. We have a correction officer that monitors him. He goes to any service that is afforded to any other individual that's incarcerated. So religious services, recreation. He'll go to law library, which he reviews all of discovery for his case. And there's really no restrictions. The only restriction that we have is that when he moves throughout the jail, we stop all inmate movement because we don't want anyone to attack him. We prefer the justice to serve in the courts and not in our jails. So that's why we have taken special precautions when we do move him to and from his housing area throughout the jail.
A follow-up of that, of course, now with his wife, Asa Ellerup, with this 7-figure documentary series where she allegedly got 7 figures. Her attorney, Robert Macedonio, got $400,000. This is what was reported. And Ves Matev, who represents the Heuermann children, the adult children, he allegedly got $200,000. Does that affect the amount of times? How often is she visiting now? Is that been upped since she got this documentary deal?
No, actually, she's only visited one time, and no other family member has visited him since. So we are very cognizant of what's going on, especially with the deal with, I believe it's Paramount Plus, that they may be able to try and gain access into our facilities, but we're prepared for that now.
Yeah, so one of them may actually just get arrested so he can sneak his camera in there to be in the jail and get the big story.
What
They
about
may get into jail, but their camera won't.
Right, yeah.
Billy? What about access to? We lost him again.
It's all right. Just keep asking a question. We'll bring him back in.
What about? I'm curious if he had. Listen, we know about all the different searches that he did when he had his computer before he was arrested. Now I know there's probably a block on the computers in the jail, but does he have access to a computer? Can he do emails? Can he do internet searches? That's one of the questions I was going to ask him.
I think one of the big things that we also want to ask Sheriff Toulon is the recent reports that he's a pen pal with the Happy Face Killer, which is sort of outrageous. Kevin Hunter Jesperson. And that's who the Happy Face Killer is, who got convicted of 8 murders. And allegedly, Rex Heuermann has been, well, not more than allegedly, they have copies of his letters to this individual. He's been corresponding with the Happy Face Killer. And I would like to ask Sheriff. Oh, there
Okay.
you go. You're back.
I'm trying a different device.
Okay. Sheriff, I don't know if you heard, we were talking about his pen pal, his new pen
Okay.
pal, the happy face killer, Keith Hunter Jesperson. Are you up on that? And have you read the letters that he's writing to the happy face killer?
Because the Commission of Corrections law, we do not read anyone's mail. We only search the mail to ensure that there's no contraband in the mail, but we actually do not read anyone's mail. We may make copies to know if we receive contraband, who may have sent that contraband, but we're not reading anyone's mail. So I have heard through media accounts about it, but we're not familiar with that.
An interesting thing about the letter was that the happy face killer told him that he should plead guilty so that his trial's not a spectacle and that it'll be over with quicker. It'll be easier on his family. I mean, how ridiculous is another serial killer giving legal advice to a serial killer, alleged serial killer who's about to stand trial?
I think from what I've spoken to other jurisdictions, and it seems like it's very common when this type of case comes up that other serial killers or those that are involved with similar crimes do try to communicate with each other. But I'm not sure if Rex has reached back out to him. So, I guess it remains to be seen if there's more correspondence.
Professor Geary, isn't that sort of an indication, I'll use your favorite expression, a consciousness of guilt, that he is corresponding with another serial killer, almost like they're communicating because they're birds of a feather, flock together, as they say?
Well, I think what was more telling than anything else was we were told in the media that Heuermann made some interesting comments about.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm trying to think of what the particular comment was, but he never actually outright denied, I am not that person, that sort of thing. So I think if the idea that if somebody's asking you, Billy, are you a serial killer or you should come clean, you would think that, and confess and get it over with. And if you weren't if you as the accused were not guilty at all and you were completely factually innocent, you would say, I don't know what you're talking about. This is all a big mistake. I have no idea why this ever came about. I am totally innocent. Anything else that seems to kind of not directly answer the question and affirm your complete innocence may be a little bit, or maybe perceived as to be a little bit of consciousness of guilt. It's a stretch, but perhaps yes. Yeah.
Sheriff, someone in the chat was concerned with why, and you probably can't answer this because you can't answer for him, but I'll just make it rhetorically. Why did Rodney Harrison appear in a press conference with John Ray, attorney John Ray? And I had answered this on other ones, and I think that he just wanted to sort of shut the door because John Ray potentially could become a witness for the defense by saying, yes, the police, I had all this information for the police, and they wouldn't cooperate with me. But Rodney Harrison did cooperate, and that was shown by him appearing in a press conference with him and listening to the information he put forth. Your thoughts?
I think that the information could have still been brought forth to the table or behind closed doors, and not necessarily in the spectacle of with the media there. I don't, and I can't answer because I never asked Rodney why he was there or what he was thinking when he spoke to Mr. Ray. So, unfortunately, I can't answer. I do know that information was presented to the task force for review, but, we have such a voluminous amount of information and phone calls and, alleged text messages and, things like that we're going through. It's just really, and like I said, you three know far better than I do when it comes to investigations like this, but it's going to take some time to really get through everything. And I'm sure at some point, the district attorney will reveal whatever information should be known to the public.
100%. And I think that, you're right with that, is that, and I'm just answering for PC Police Commissioner Harrison as to why he may have been in a press conference.
Bill,
with,
can I comment on that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Listen, I didn't talk to Rodney Harrison about it, but it seems to me that perhaps John Ray was going to do this press conference. He's doing it no matter what. And maybe the police commissioner wanted to get out ahead of it by going there with him to give the indication that, yes, we're going to take this information. We're going to see if it's got any validity. We're going to vet it. We're going to see if it has any credibility at all, if there is anything that's consistent with something that Rex Heuermann may have done in the past. I think that would be only reason that I would have if I were the police commissioner to stand next to him during that press conference. If he tells him, I'm doing a press conference, this is what I'm going to say. If you want to be there, you can be with me. And perhaps he wanted to get out in front of it because of the history in the Suffolk County Police Department with the corruption of Burke and all the different things, and the Spoda, the former prosecutor in Suffolk County. So perhaps he wanted to maybe get out in front of it and say, listen, we're going to take every bit of information that comes in, even if it's Johnny Ray, whether it's good or not, we're going to vet it. We're going to look at it. We're going to give it to the task force and see if it's relevant to this case. That's my opinion of why I think he went there.
Very possible. You know, Sheriff, I wanted to ask, the task force is still together, correct? And my part
Yes,
B,
it is.
B to that is, do you guys have, say, monthly meetings to keep everyone apprised of any potential new developments, or to keep the lines of communication open?
So the members of the task force are in the same together, working with each other, and that has not stopped. Anytime there's a briefing, someone from a representative of that agency would brief, their head of their organization. And then if there was something that's really relevant, where it's a break in the case, or there's more information that would be given to the public, I would speak to the head of the New York State Police, of course, our district attorney. Rodney has now left the Suffolk County Police Department. So I would speak to the acting commissioner, and then also, the FBI. So we're still very much in communication and working together, to try and get as much information regarding Rex Heuermann and also the other victims in this case.
That's all we really hear about. And you indicated that the potential for another case to be dropped upon him, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, is nearing. It potentially could happen very, very soon. However, there's at least seven other bodies that he needs to answer for. And I always thought that when he was arrested, and even perhaps when he goes to trial or after he goes to trial, if he is found guilty, that might be the time that he comes clean and tells about everything, because he will get life in prison without parole. And maybe trading that for more privileges is a potentiality, but that'll be after his trial. Your thoughts, Professor Geary?
Yeah, Billy, that's his bargaining chip. If, I think the public should be prepared that if Maureen Brainerd Barnes' indictment, the indictment for Maureen Brainerd Barnes' death doesn't come through, and they end up going to trial on just 3 out of the probably dozen, bodies that had been found, the public is going to have to just come to terms with it and say, well, there wasn't enough evidence to take it to trial. And then our suspicions may be right. He may be the person responsible, but we have to live with it and say, okay, if he's convicted on 3, that's enough. We put him away for life. And for him, all he's got would be some information. We see this oftentimes with serial killers wanting to avoid the electric chair in different states, the big needle, that sort of thing. They will answer and tell about other uncharged crimes and things like that. That's all he'll have. He can use that perhaps like as some sort of leverage to get a little bit better deal, like Joel Rifkin, maybe to get a interview every once in a while, keep his name in the news. Maybe a criminologist would want to come to visit him. That's all he'll have. If he's convicted, that's all he'll have is a little bit of information that he could trade for some privileges. And that may be the future. That may be his future.
Absolutely. Sheriff Toulon, someone in the chat wants to know if there is a short list of names for potential the next Suffolk County Police Commissioner.
According to Newsday, there was several names. Kevin Catalina, who I'm sure all of you know, who is deputy chief with the NYPD and currently my undersheriff. I believe Stu Cameron, former chief of the department and former acting commissioner. Rob Waring, former current chief of department, is another name that I hear. And those seem to be just some of the names that I see reported in the media, not through any discussions that I've had with anyone.
So, Sheriff, the name retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon has never come up?
It was mentioned, but they don't think they could afford you.
It was vetoed rather quickly.
He's too busy doing a podcast. Sheriff, could I ask you a question? Now, you obviously have intimate knowledge of this case. Do you believe that Rex Heuermann is responsible for all of these victims? I mean, it seems likely to me, but what's your opinion, if you can give it?
I do believe that he is the crime that he's accused of. He is the individual that committed the three that he's currently incarcerated for. It remains to be seen if he's linked to the other murders, but I can tell you that I do feel very strongly. One of the things that Professor was talking about, since he's in our custody, and, I've seen from John Gotti to Bernard Goetz to Joel Steinberg, in my custody, and he has shown no emotion whatsoever, especially just thinking about being in jail. No head on the bars, no remorse, no pacing in his cell, very calm, very stoic. He does what he's supposed to do. Of course, the first week or 10 days he was in our custody, he was in protective custody. So, he's a very interesting individual.
Sheriff, I just had to say, you say he shows no emotion. If you put a slice of pizza in front of him, does he show a little bit of emotion?
He probably would. He probably wouldn't. He'd probably say, he probably asked if that was for him or someone else, and if he can eat it. He's very compliant with everything going on in the jail. He's not disruptive. He's not disrespectful. He does everything he's supposed to do. He follows the orders of my staff.
The last time he ate a slice of pizza, it put him in the trick bag for being a serial killer.
Right, they got his DNA off of it. Yeah. He'll be like, "Hey, I'm going to make sure I eat every.
I'll pass on the pizza.
I'm going to eat every single scrap. I'm never throwing another.
That's
thing
it.
out
He'll either pass on it or eat the crust and all."
Sheriff, you mentioned earlier, we may have even been on the air, that there's an interesting way that prisoners. You have a big fentanyl problem in the jail, and they're able to put fentanyl in books. Isn't that correct? In, I guess, a dried form, and then they can pass over books, and then people get fentanyl in that way. Could you explain that to us?
Sure. We've encountered many times individuals spraying fentanyl on pages of a book that the intended person that it's mailed to would know what pages have fentanyl on them. And what they do is that they'll rip the page out, they'll cut it into smaller pieces of paper that a person can put underneath their tongue and get the effect that they want from the drug. And of course, this is fentanyl is worth 15 to 20 times more inside of our jails than it is as far as street value. So it has become a big challenge, and we've been working through technology. I'm very concerned that my staff could be affected because they're entrusted to search all the items coming into a jail through the mail. We don't want our canines to be affected with fentanyl. We've learned that certain gangs have put fentanyl inside ink cartridges, and when they print items, it just comes right out onto the piece of paper, and those documents are then mailed. Some individuals have even attempted, without an attorney knowing, passing it to an attorney, and the attorney is trying to give it to the client. And because it's supposed to be legal mail, or because the attorney is passing it, that's something that we definitely, could barely search or barely look at. So, it has become a big challenge with fentanyl, but it's just not us. When I talk to my partners in New York City or Nassau County, we're all dealing with the same issues of fentanyl in our jails.
That's something that we in the outside world would never think anything about, of the way contraband is moved in and out of jails, in and out of prisons. And we used to always say in the police department that if some of these people used this deviousness for good purposes, they would be rich, but they're doing it for bad reasons, and it because there is some ingeniousness to doing some of the things they do.
I agree with you 100%. They could probably be so much more productive and lead really, really good lives that enable them to support themselves and their family. But they chose this way of life, unfortunately.
Unbelievable. Sheriff, I promised Victoria, your assistant, that we would speak about your very recent trip to El Salvador. And I don't think it was for Cinco de Mayo or anything like that. You weren't going there for fun. You were going there for business. And specifically, it was to track and study MS-13, the gang, and some of their techniques. In fact, many of the El Salvadorian MS-13 gang members were in Brentwood, Long Island. They had a part of the prison called Brentwood. I mean, very ingenious to go over there and study their techniques and their methods, because now Sheriff Toulon is going to know all about that. Go ahead, Sheriff.
Yeah, I went there and I went to El Salvador in 2018 after I got elected. And at that time, there were 87 law enforcement officials that had died, not in the line of duty, but were killed by MS-13 members. And so last year, we had the Minister of Justice come to visit and speak at our gang conference, and he invited me back. And so myself and Catalina went there. We went there for 5 days. We visited the International Law Enforcement Academy, the police headquarters, the police academy, and then we went to CCOT, which is the maximum security jail for high-level MS-13 and their rival gang, 18. And the interesting thing about this jail is there are 42 cells, 21 on each side, 60 to 70 people per cell, no mattresses on their bunks. They can only wear underwear and undershirts. They do not receive phone calls, mail, visits, or commissary. There's only 2 toilets. There's no shower. There's a bathing area. And they have MS-13 and 18th Street in the same cells. They're not separating them according to their gang. And I think some of the things that are most interesting is that because President Bukele, who's the new president of El Salvador, has cracked down, tourism has gone up in El Salvador. The economy has gone up. Those that have fled as El Salvador because of MS-13 are trying to get back. And because of the great job that they're doing, El Salvador, MS-13 has fled El Salvador for Honduras, Ecuador, and the United States.
Wow. Now, what level of a problem is MS-13 in Nassau and Suffolk County? I know Suffolk County, a bigger problem, specifically the town I previously mentioned, Brentwood, Long Island. Is it still as big a problem, or have you guys gotten a handle on it?
I think with Rodney Harrison, Ray Tierney, and the work that the men and women in the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office is doing, is that we really have a closer grip on these individuals, and also the other gang members like the Bloods and the Crips and the Trinitarios. And so we really have, I think, a stronghold on what's going on with some of these gang members out here to try and keep our community safe. We know that most of the violence is gang on gang or within the gang that's occurring, not necessarily innocent people in our community. So I think one of the benefits of this trip was to be able to exchange the information and be able to reach out to those in El Salvador if we have some questions and some information regarding graffiti or tattoos or any material we may discover that may be passed from one cell to another, not necessarily mail, that we can now get interpreted from their government.
You mentioned graffiti, and I remember in Comstat, where it was the meetings we used to go to as squad, bosses of the squads. And Chief Anamone always used to say, it was if there was a shooting or a homicide, did you check the gang graffiti? And you'd be like, Oh, yes, yeah, Chief, I did. What did it say? Oh, yeah. So you had to make sure that you did do that because, yeah, it's related and it will tell you what different gangs are at a certain location. Sometimes they even take credit for it by posting certain things. And as we all know now, the social media is a treasure trove of information because sometimes people that do shootings and do murders, they start bragging about it on Facebook or on YouTube the next day. So all of us in law enforcement have to be fluent in all those languages.
And also, they're talking about it in the jails. I can't tell you how many times we have an attempted homicide or a homicide that may occur in certain areas that they're talking about it in our jail. And just real quickly, when I was in El Salvador, I came across two people that were actually from Suffolk County that were deported back to El Salvador. So, interesting enough, I ran, one person was Port Jeff Station and Brentwood. So, when you come across individuals that are in a El Salvadorian jail, their maximum security jail, and actually had walked on the United States soil, probably committing crimes, you start to really wonder and think twice about what we're doing here.
Absolutely. Phil, you have a question?
Well, I know that I have a relative that was a Suffolk County police officer, and he was telling me how really ruthless the MS-13 gangs were, that they would actually try to intimidate police officers, detectives by showing up at their home, different things of that nature. And I heard, obviously some of the killings that they did, they would kill people with a machete to inflict maximum pain and suffering as opposed to shooting them. So we know that they're definitely bloodthirsty. The fact that you're trying to get a handle on it in the jails. The scary thing about what you said is that they're leaving El Salvador and coming to the other countries and, of course, the United States with the open border policy that we have here. I think that that's a great concern for us. And the fact that you're on top of it in Suffolk County, I think is probably going to be a good thing, a positive thing in nature. But that does sound a little bit concerning to me.
Sheriff, you may chase them right back into New York City.
Good. Just get them out of Suffolk. I don't care.
Mike, you got a question?
Yeah, just a quick question for the sheriff. Sheriff, have you had any Suffolk County correctional officers intimidated or threatened, or their families threatened? Do you know if they've been threatened by any of these gang members that are in your facility?
No, luckily, in the 6 years that I've been the sheriff, we have not had any intimidation. If that was to occur, we do encourage our staff to report it, because we would then provide protection for them and do what we have to do to ensure not only are they safe, but make sure that none of my officers are threatened.
Good.
I remember with the NYPD, if you got threatened or followed home, you know what their response was? They'd give you a radio. Yeah. What good is this up in Dutchess County, right? Yeah, take this radio. If you have a problem, I think I need a little more than a radio, but crazy. Sheriff, I want to say, and I touched upon this before, but this is really a proactive corrections. And it's great to see it, because normally us laypersons on the outside here, and even us, those that were in law enforcement, we didn't see this level of proactive part, being a cog in the wheel of the criminal justice, the whole criminal justice bureau, right? And what you're doing, being proactive and getting out into the community, it just helps everyone. And this was evidenced by the Gilgo Beach Task Force, the Suffolk County Police Department, the FBI, right? Suffolk County DA's office, the Sheriff's Department, and the New York State Police. 5. Remember that movie Fist? We make a fist and we're much stronger, right? That's what this, I want to quote Sylvester Stallone, but that's what this was like. Having 5 different entities together, making a powerful statement, and together it makes a team that's very difficult to beat.
Yes, we have been, Rodney Harrison used to call him, myself, and Ray Tierney, the big 3, because of the way we communicated, because there hasn't been that type of communication at least here in Suffolk County, amongst these three law enforcement organizations. And we have great collaboration, great communication, and we have no egos, which I think is the biggest thing. You know, whoever gets the credit gets the credit. We just want the bad guys off the street.
Right. And, you know, if Ray Tierney would have cooperated and shaved his head, you would have had three bald, and the Super Three would have had bald heads, you know. But
The big three.
the big bald three, they could have said. He must not have been cooperating. You know, here he is with he's got hair. You know, maybe he has a few more years of having hair, so he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to take that style yet. You know, but tremendous. You know, and all this stuff is interconnected, and the success that the Gilgo Beach Task Force has had is really a reflection on all you guys, and the fact that, you know, it took 11, 12 years to reach where they reached. And then in like the first 3 or 4 months, I believe Rodney Harrison was there, you got a name of who the killer was. And then you put the case together. Right. And it's really a reflection of great police work, great cooperation in the whole Criminal Justice Bureau. And, you know, they always used to say, our partners. I used to hate when they would say that, but they would say, our partners in the criminal justice field, you know. And of course, you're talking about partners with the FBI, partners with the district attorney's office, partners with the sheriff of Suffolk County, the Suffolk County Police, the New York State Police, all those partners. You think one bad guy is going to defeat all those minds? I don't think so. Professor Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, Billy, we saw what happened with the disorganization for over a decade, at least a decade, you know, with the Gilgo Beach investigation. It was going nowhere. It was going nowhere permanently. It was like stuck in concrete. But as soon as you had some people with a can-do attitude, you know, Tierney and Commissioner Harrison, you know, you got some momentum going. I remember seeing a video of Commissioner Harrison on his first day in office, like first week in office, going to the crime scenes, walking the crime scenes, as just like when he was originally an investigator 25 years earlier, seeing what the guys see, what are they seeing, going back and looking at everything and seeing the mess that had been created over the years, putting some order to it. And then once you got that, you've got Sheriff Toulon and you've got ADA Tierney, you put everybody together, you got the state police and that sort of thing. You have a synergy. It's all about the egos, as Sheriff Toulon said, putting that all aside, saying, you know, and getting some competent people in the right spot and giving them the ability to do what they got to do. And it was so fast when you look at the timeline from the time that task force was put together, within like 3 or 4 months, boom, they've got a name. And then for the rest of the time, they slowly close the net on them. And that's professional police work from A to Z. Amazing effort.
Sheriff, you have some fans in the chat. There's someone, Diane Krause, loves Sheriff Toulon. I'm sure there's more fans there, but I just wanted to show you that in the spirit of Christmas, in the spirit of the season. You do have some fans in the chat. Someone in the chat said before that we're always picking on Attorney John Ray. No, we're not. We're just
picking on him.
We're just, you know, he has to vet his information too. He had a press conference. He put out some information there that to me was a little bit tough to believe, and it has to be vetted. And so far, we haven't heard. And again, it had to go to the task force. They had to interview the very people who he has signed affidavits from. It can either be smoking gun information or it can be garbage. That's a French word for garbage, right? So it's either, and we would be remiss in our reporting duties if we ignored it. We can't ignore it, and we can't, you know, pussyfoot around it. We have to say whether it's good or not. Phil, your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I touched upon that earlier when Sheriff Toulon was saying how they did interview several sex workers, and now they're going to vet that information. It was given off to the task force, and we have to be able to corroborate. Are they being looking for their 15 minutes of fame, or are they being cooperative with something that they really had an interaction with him? In any case, that's very, very important. Any investigation, homicide investigation, it could be a pettit larceny investigation. When you have information, you have to vet it. You have to be able to corroborate it. So those are the things that are being done now. Quick question to Sheriff Toulon. I know that we were trying to touch on it before we had a little technical difficulty. Does Rex Heuermann have access to computers? Because we know he did a ton of computer searches that they put forth in that affidavit that was originally given out after he was arrested. Does he have access to computers in the jail, sir?
So it's by court order, he does have access to a computer to review only his discovery materials for his case. He can do research on those computers through our law library system with any similar cases or anything that he may want to do research on specifically to his case. He doesn't have internet access where he can Google things and find out things about anyone else. It's really restricted, and it is a law library system that all inmates can use.
Very interesting. Light walkers. I can see Heuermann being compliant. It's his personality. People with NPD and psychopathy many times got the extreme underdog, but also analogous to a serpent with a very smooth underbelly. Light walker is very good, very well written. That's his personality. That's why some of the things that were reported about him firing a gun, about doing this, that, and the other thing, it didn't seem consistent with the personality of a serial killer. And that's why we questioned it. And don't forget, myself, Phil, and Mike were all investigators. You know, we did this for a living for many, many years. I mean, we're not as renowned as Sheriff Toulon, and most of us have a little bit of hair, even though it's white in color. But so we're not in that. We're not in the Magnificent Three Club. But you know, we weren't born yesterday. We've been around a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, and we always try to stay fact-based because we have our experience. We've been through this. It's not like this is our first rodeo. We've been through these type of investigations. We've all had interaction with murderers, and I've had some interaction with serial killers. I think Bill as well. I don't know about Mike. No. So it's not that we're coming from left field with our opinions on things. Are we 100% correct? Listen, anything's possible in these cases, but we try to give our best professional opinion on stuff that's already been put forward. We vet evidence, and we have a way of looking at it from an investigator's point, an investigative perspective. I think we lost the sheriff again, unfortunately. But, whenever we do make a comment on something that's reported in a case, it's coming from a professional, factual standpoint. And again, we're not perfect. We're not always right. And we always say this, we don't have intimate access to the case file. We don't read the case file of the current investigation, but we do have someone today, Sheriff Toulon, who did have some intimate knowledge of the case. So I think a lot of the things that he brought out today were just fantastic. I think we got a great idea of what his everyday life is like in jail, Rex Heuermann. And we know that perhaps maybe there's going to be some charges coming forward on the fourth person that we talked about, one of the victims. There could be charges in that case. And I thought it was great having the sheriff on today.
Absolutely. Sheriff Toulon, I don't want to keep you here all night because I know this is Christmas party season. You're probably invited to about 10 parties tonight. So I'm going to go around and we're going to give our final thoughts, and I'm going to give you the last thought. But Phil, let me go to Mike. You were just talking, Phil.
I just want the public to say thank you to Sheriff Toulon and to Rodney Harrison and ADA Tierney for doing a bang-up job with the investigation. Thank goodness they all came together and did it, and the synergy was excellent, and we got great results. And I think the public should be aware that that level of cooperation isn't always that common in law enforcement. And thank goodness out in Suffolk County with New York State Police and everybody and the Suffolk County and other departments that it all came together. So thank goodness for that.
Phil, your final words.
Final words. Thank you, Sheriff. It was such a pleasure and an honor to be on with you tonight. You're obviously a professional, a consummate professional. I tip my hat to you. I tip my hat to Rodney Harrison. I think that all of the people, all of the 5 agencies that work together in this case, that's how we got the result that we got. It took a long time, but we did get, we got charges on 3 and perhaps a 4th of the victims. Just on a personal note, Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays. Hopefully we'll see you before Christmas, but if we don't, everybody stay safe out there. Enjoy the holidays. As Bill said in the beginning of the show, don't drink and drive. It's not worth it. Call an Uber, have fun, enjoy your families, enjoy life, and God bless to everyone, and happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
That's great, Phil. Sheriff Toulon, before you disappear again, I just want to thank you so much. You're a great guy. I
sure
want to meet
is.
you in person one day. I know Kevin Catalina. I worked with him. He was a CO to 3-2 when I was in homicide. All these guys stay around. They're going to work till they die, I think, you know. I'm just doing this. I'm just a mild-mannered podcaster, you know. But, Sheriff, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much. And thank your assistant. She's always a pleasure to deal with. Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad. Prospero año. Felicidad. You know, that's about the extent of my Spanish. Final word, Sheriff.
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas to you and your families. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very sorry about the technical difficulties. If you have me on again in 24, I'll make sure the bill is paid so we won't have these interruptions. But
we're going to hold you to that. You got to come back on in 24.
But I will definitely, anything that goes on with Rex Heuermann, you know, we'll keep you updated and keep your listeners updated. And more importantly, we're going to continue to keep Suffolk County safe. God
You're the
bless you
man.
all.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. So great to have you on the show. Folks, Merry Christmas. Again, if you drink, do not drive. Call Sheriff Toulon. He'll give you a ride. Or call Uber, you know, but do not drink and drive. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll see you on the next one.
God bless you. Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.